We're seeing all of these companies claw that work from home back and bring people back into the office full time. And I really think that's a mistake. I think we're managing the wrong things that way. And I think it's easy for a manager to think I can control someone when I can see them, and to think that means that they're working. We haven't, as managers, figured out, or what a lot of managers haven't figured out, is how do I lead someone who, with accountability and with autonomy and in a human way, even when they are working remotely. I also think managers, they think they have to have all the answers.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Pam Ross. After 15 years in HR and operations leadership in the corporate world, Pam quit her job with a mission to improve work life. Pam brings her experience and her training in resilience, the science of happiness, systems coaching, and self-managed work to her clients to build more engaged and innovative workplaces where people are free to do their best work. Pam is a sought-after speaker about the future of work and employee engagement, and the co-creator of the Blueprint for Workplace Reinvention. She has been featured in Huffington Post, on CTV, and in HR Magazine. When Pam is not shaking up the world of work, she can be found cheering on her hometown Tiger Cats, paddling on her pond, or walking by the lake with her rescue dog, Dexter. Congrats on shaking up the world of work, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you so much, Karl. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Awesome. So speaking of awesome, I love how the kind of the pre-recording discussion, you talked about how your goal is not to make work a happy experience, but make it an awesome experience. So how do you make work awesome?
Yeah, thank you. It starts with that distinction, I think, between happiness and awesome, because we do want people to be happy at work. But I think sometimes there's an over focus on just that happiness. So one of the things that drives me most crazy is when I ask people, tell me about your last awesome day at work. And their awesome days at work were only when there was the party after work, or they weren't actually working at all. It was because they were doing something social. And what I would love to see is actually work to be awesome. And I know this is possible because my first real job, I'll put that in quotes because I had worked before, but my first real full-time job was awesome. So I saw this, how work could be awesome. And then I saw many workplaces where work wasn't awesome. And so I want to bring some of the things I learned from all of those different experiences back to make work awesome for more people.
So tell me more about the first quote unquote real job and what made it so awesome.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was a waitress through university. And when I finished university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. So I thought I'd take a year off. And I got an opportunity to travel around Canada and open up, oh, there's your cat, and open up restaurants around the country. And within a couple of months of being an opening store trainer, I got promoted to running this opening store team. And this, I tell you, I would go home every night and I was doing some of the hardest, longest hours I've ever worked. But if you asked me how was work today, I would say awesome. And I had a team of 10. We were all kind of waitresses or line cooks or working in restaurants, and we had been pulled together out of our different restaurants to travel around the country and do this. I was 22, 23 years old, running this team, had a ton of accountability because we had to get the restaurant open on time, on budget, serving great guest experiences. But I also had a ton of autonomy to adjust what we needed to do to get that done, to collaborate with the team. We had so much fun every day at work, collaborating, laughing together, adjusting things on the fly when, you know, inevitably problems with construction or hiring or different things would come up. We worked together to solve all those problems, and work was really hard, but work was awesome. And those people that I worked with, some of them are still some of my best friends today. I learned so much about myself, about work, and about how awesome work could be from that experience.
That definitely sounds like a fun experience to have the ability to adapt to things on the fly and problem solve and collaborate, and you're working with people that you're put together as a team. And I think that big thing that I've heard multiple times is that autonomy, and even though the work was hard, because you felt like you're in control of what happened and what the solutions were, you did better work and you were more satisfied with the work because it wasn't something you're just being told to do by someone else. It was, you had a goal and you were given the responsibility and the trust to make it work. And as long as you delivered the results that the company needed, there wasn't a whole lot of oversight or handholding or micromanaging going on.
Right. I mean, my boss couldn't micromanage me. He was back here in Ontario and I was off in Alberta opening up a restaurant with the team. So we had to be accountable. We had to have that freedom. And we had to work together to get it all done. And the level of trust that we had at such a young age too, that level of trust really just changed me. And I have to say also, I come by that like autonomous, accountable perspective very honestly. I also in high school, in 2020, in 1990, I wish it was 2020. In 1990, I was in high school, and our high school changed to work at your own pace sort of high school. So you would have 20 units for a course, and it was up to you how you got it done. You didn't have to go to class every day. They had lectures twice a week, so you would go to those and then figure out your own time. So the courses that you needed more work on, you could spend more time on and get those 20 units done, or the courses that you needed less time on that came naturally to you, you could get done really quickly. And I loved the level of autonomy that gave me. I still knew I had to finish courses and like graduate, but I was able to do it in my own time. So like this started with me very young. I was, 15, 16 years old in high school and
Wow.
working at that in that way.
I think that's something that a lot of workplaces don't provide. There's a lot of micromanaging, or at least the bosses or managers aren't trusting their teams to be accountable, to get their work done their own way, there's so much, I don't want to say hand-holding, because it's not coming from like, I want to help you. It's more just like, do it this way, or do it like it's a prescribed, just going to follow these instructions, and not trusting employees with autonomy. And is that one of the kind of key problems you see with a lot of workplaces that you are coaching?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, especially, as workplaces have become more dispersed. And so we're not seeing people in the workplace all the time. And, we're seeing all of these companies claw that work from home back and bring people back into the office full time. And I really think that's a mistake. I think we're managing the wrong things that way. And I think it's easy for a manager to think I can control someone when I can see them, and to think that means that they're working. We haven't, as managers, figured out, or what a lot of managers haven't figured out, is how do I lead someone who, with accountability and with autonomy and in a human way, even when they are working remotely. I also think managers, they think they have to have all the answers. So, maybe they did the job before and they got promoted and they did it a certain way. So they think it has to be done that way. And they think they have to have the answers. And what really great managers can do is set the goal, set the outcomes, and hold people accountable to that, and then give them the autonomy to figure out how to do that, and create safety so that people can ask when they need help, so that and interact in a coaching way rather than a telling and dictator sort of way when people are struggling with accountability. So I think when people aren't meeting objectives and they're working remotely, our knee-jerk reaction is you have to come back to the office. When it should be, okay, what's causing the struggle with accountability here? What are you having trouble with? And let's problem solve for that instead of just bringing people back to the office. So we're managing the wrong thing that way.
Yeah, I agree that there's this misconception that managers and bosses have that if they can see people, I think that's great. That if they see people, then it must mean they're being productive and working. And I do think there's that issue that has been going on for years where people get promoted for being good at doing the thing when they don't have the skills for leading other people that do the thing. Mm-hmm. And they're not equipped for it. And I think that's an underlying problem for like a lot of the managers, that they're just not equipped for leadership in that way that you described, of holding space and being supportive and giving autonomy and setting goals, and then trusting people to get the work done their way, and understanding that just the way they used to do it themselves isn't the only way or necessarily even the best way to do it. And so what are some of so if someone is listening and realizes, okay, I recognize either as a manager myself, I'm having sort of issues, or they're a leader of a company and they notice that their managers are having the same sort of struggles, or their team's experiencing the same sort of challenges. What are some of the ways you get people started on fixing this sort of issues?
Mm-hmm. The first thing that we do when we're doing leadership development is we talk about leadership choices. So this is the first thing, and realizing that just because you got this title and you have a team reporting to you does not make you a leader. It's actually a conscious choice that this is a different job. You are no longer in that tactical job. And what does this job mean to be a leader or to be a manager? And in different companies that may be different, with different size teams that may be different, in different kind of roles that may be different, but really getting clear on what do we expect from leaders in this organization or in this role, and helping people to realize that their job is no longer to do that tactical work all day, but to really develop their team so that they are doing that in a very productive, effective way. So the first is, what is the role of a leader? Making the conscious choice to do that. And then secondly is, I think one of the core skills that leaders need today, especially in sort of knowledge work or in work where we don't see the person physically doing the work all day, is a coaching approach. So being able to ask questions to help people solve their own problems and to understand their motivations and why they're making the decisions that they're making, rather than just coming in and seeing something that wasn't done in the way you expected and kind of laying down the law and saying this is wrong, and correcting to what you think is the quote unquote right way. I think we need to really take more of an open questioning approach of like, tell me more about how you got to that decision so that you can understand why people are doing the things they do, because there might be something within that you're going to learn that can help you solve a better problem rather than this tactical problem. A lot of times leaders get stuck solving these little sort of surface problems, and unless you go deeper, you're going to continue to have to solve all the surface problems. You have to figure out what's at the core of these decisions that are being made, that I can help correct that and align people to the right thing so that they can make the better decisions in the future. If that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. I love that approach of, it's kind of like the way I like to describe it when I'm talking to people is they're so focused on treating the symptoms or not treating the underlying like problem of the symptoms, the thing that's causing the problems. And if you just, if you keep treating the symptoms and not the problem, it's going to keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great distinction to make because I think there's just a lot of, with how fast the world of work is, I think people think, oh, they don't feel like they have the time or they don't realize they should take the time to ask those questions and dig deeper and find the problem because they feel like, oh, I just got to fix it and go to the next thing. Whereas if they had the time or it's like, or going to realize they need to take the time to ask more questions and understand the underlying problems behind the tactical issues, then one, they'd be a better leader and have a stronger team, but also they'd be saving all the time they'd have to spend continuing to fix those tactical things just by fixing the problem at the source the first time. Really frees up them their day for much more productive, innovative work than just putting out little fires that could have been stopped at the source instead of just playing whack-a-mole all day.
Right. And I think when we think of accountability, I love the concept of 100% responsibility. And a lot of times, I think a lot of managers take more than 100% responsibility. So they see the problem, they swoop in, solve it, or tell someone what the solution is. And by doing that, you're actually taking some responsibility away from your direct reports because you are now responsible for the solution. When we learn to ask and help people find their own solutions, we're helping them to take their 100% responsibility. And I'm taking my 100% responsibility as your leader who's developing you to do that. So it's figuring out what's the 100% so that we don't go over or under that 100% responsibility.
I like that distinction because I think, I mean, there's an article recently in Fast Company that was talking about how overloaded and overworked managers feel and they're burning out. And I think they're probably all going over that 100% threshold and taking too much accountability, too much responsibility for their direct reports because like you just said, they go in and swoop in and feel like they have to provide the answer for the tactical problems instead of equipping and empowering their teams to handle it and taking some of that burden off the management team. So I think makes total sense why they're feeling overwhelmed and like there's way too much responsibility for their position in the company. And it's just because they're taking it on themselves instead of leading. They're trying to still do the tactical work that is no longer the purview of their job.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's so much drama in our heads that, so I'll give you an example. We actually ask when we do a leadership development program, we ask at the beginning and the end of the program, how many hours per week do you spend in energy draining behaviors? And we give them examples, feeling like you have to solve other people's problems, stressing about feedback or something you said, worrying about performance issues on your team, being drawn into venting or gossip, and overcoming resistance to change or conflict. So all of these are problems in our head where we are ruminating over something, worrying, being anxious about something that could happen or something that did happen, and not being present in a human connecting way in the moment. What we have found is, and I'll give you numbers from one of our most recent cohorts. One of the people in the group actually said they were spending up to 100 hours in a week doing in that kind of behavior. The average was 30 hours a week. So, and this is in a week of 168 hours. So they're up at night thinking about this. So they're not getting good sleep. They're spending time at work thinking, how do I craft this Slack message or email so that someone doesn't get upset, or what am I going to do in this conversation? So they're spending so much time ruminating. The average was 30 hours. And so in our leadership programs, we start with those leadership choices. We do a lot of work on, emotionally, like controlling what's going on in your head and realizing the amount of stories and drama your head makes up, helping them through like coaching as a form of feedback, and teaching them how to give feedback without judgment in it, so that it is like, here's what I noticed or observed, facts, what's going on with a coaching approach and without a judgment approach. And so like practical, tactical tools, but also these mindset shifts. We saw that average go from 30 to 12 hours a week. Now, 12 hours a week is still a lot, but that's a 60% decrease, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about managers being overworked, how much of that time is because they haven't been taught or given the capability or the autonomy or freedom to use tools to help with mindset, to help with feedback, to help get over some of these energy draining drama behaviors.
Wow, that is really impressive impact for the sort of coaching you're doing. I think it's really important for leaders to understand that how their managers are being, what's really draining of their energy, and what they can do to improve the work experience and make work awesome for their teams. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Pam. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Pam, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.